Good morning. Today we're going to talk a little bit more about the contract/treaty that Solomon had with Hiram and how that all worked. So the reading is 1 Kings 5:10 through 18. That's the first reading. So go ahead and pause me and read 1 Kings 5:10 through 18. And then the second reading is 2 Chronicles 2. And there's just 3 verses. It's verse 2, 17, and 18. So go ahead and pause me again and read 2 Chronicles 2, verses 2, 17, and 18. And I'll be here when you get back. Okay, so year after year, this treaty went on, and Hiram was giving Solomon these logs. Okay, he wasn't giving them to him. They were actually, we talked about Solomon's logs, but Hiram was preparing the logs for building. And this is a case where the value of the workmanship was greater than the article itself. And Solomon, in return, was sending wheat and olive oil to Hiram. So this import-export business going on. And the year after year, so how many years? Generally, it's thought to be 20 years that it took to build the temple and the palaces. So this treaty was not just for the temple. It also included Solomon's palace and some other buildings we'll get to later. But the 2 big ones were the temple and Solomon's palace. So there was peace between them, even though Hiram had built his empire on technically Israeli land and Solomon's land. So the passage lists a lot of numbers about the number of workers. Generally, the numbers themselves aren't important. Some people say they don't really add up, but there's explanations out there if you're interested. The conscripted or drafted workers that were sent to Lebanon were, 1 month working in Lebanon, 2 months at home. They could have technically been temple workers, which this would have been part of their job, but that's an awful lot of temple workers, and people just don't think that really could have happened. So this was drafted labor. Basically, you didn't have a choice. You had to do it if you were drafted. And the Israelites that stayed home to work were probably paid. They were skilled laborers, but the aliens, who again, we're not sure if that's part of the drafted workers or not, were probably slaves. And they were the people doing the drudge work, the work that anybody could do. I could go out and help somebody do it. It didn't require a skill. So that comes kind of from the 2 Chronicles passage. The aliens were these descendants of the Canaanites, who you remember back in Joshua, they being the Israelites, did not conquer all of the land like God had told them to do. They conquered it, and then they made friends with the people that lived there, and then they didn't conquer it. They just made them slaves or helpers or whatever you want to call them. Anyway, this whole draft system is almost like a taxation. And before Saul, God had asked the Israelites, are you really sure you want a God? Because this is not a king, not a God. If you want a king, because kings are not good things. And this is kind of the fruition of that statement, because Solomon has started taxing with labor, in this case, to get the things to make Israel stronger. So kings have this need to build stronger and stronger nations, especially when they're relying on themselves and not God. So some look at this as the building of the temple as the beginning of the end. Later on, we'll read where Solomon's son said, if you thought my dad was a hard taskmaster, you don't know anything, and that kind of split the kingdom. So this unrest that's going to be caused by using labor, the Israelites as labor, is going to come back and bite them. The other thing in this passage is talking about the foundation, and that's in verse 17. And the foundation for the temple was marble, which is kind of cool, and porphyry, which is a stone with crystals in it. And that is the foundation. So that's not the floor. That's the foundation. We would, depending on where you live, we would know that as the slab, the ugly part. And then you come up, and then over that was the dressed stone. So if this is the foundation, think how cool that is. And so the parallel is drawn here that Christ is the foundation of our faith and the cornerstone, which is the most important piece of the foundation of our faith. And it needs to be solid, but it is the most important piece of our faith. And in my study on commentaries, I ran across a quote that I really liked, Matthew Henry, that says, "Lay firm the foundation and take the most pains on that part of our religion which lies out of the sight of men." The foundation is everything. So those of you who are moms with young kids, I just think that, this is just my opinion, nobody else's, that raising your children with a firm religious foundation is key to having them be strong in the faith in later life. Tomorrow we'll get into building the temple. See you then.